Alright, everybody, I want to go over a quick update from the developers. We got our part 2 to the mid-chapter PTB changes, where they kind of took all of our criticisms, all of our input and feedback, and they compiled it. And honestly, I think they came back with a real slam dunk that honestly almost made my entire list like 100% accurate. I am actually pretty stoked about this update now. So, first thing they wanted to talk about, and what was almost certainly the most controversial change that came to the PTB, is the healing nerfs. So, in case you didn't realize, the original healing nerf they had proposed was all healing was going to be base kit 24 seconds. So, self care meant it was going to take like 68 seconds. Like, if you had sloppy, it was going to take significantly longer. They scrapped most of that idea, and they've reverted the base healing speed back to 16 seconds. This is great. That was, I think, a lot of people's big beef is that 24 seconds on healing was insane. It meant that, picking yourself up from the ground took 48 seconds. It meant if killers ran any sort of anti-healing perks, it would take as as long to reset two survivors as it would to almost do an entire gen by itself. So this is great. Like the 24 seconds was overkill, and I'm glad they rolled their opinion back on it. However, they also acknowledge that medkits are still too strong. So their change for that is self-carrying with a medkit will impose a 33% speed debuff to you for healing, which means self-carrying with a medkit will still take 24 seconds. This is great. This is great, and they also on top of that made it so healing others with the medkit took longer, not was faster. So because their idea that what they wanted from this was to incentivize using medkits on other people, but not removing the option to use it on yourself, because that is still a time efficient thing to use on yourself, and that's still where like 90% of medkit charges are going to be going to is self healing. But this is great. This means that like medkits aren't universally like the strongest item. Like they have a real cost to them. Like healing yourself with a medkit is going to take longer. This is a reasonable nerf that feels good. And they also buffed most of the add-ons, considering that they nerfed the self care speed. So we have things like the butterfly tape up from 3% to 5%, the medical scissors up to 12% from 10%, and the they didn't say this one. What is this one? It was the green atom, but it's up to 20% from 15%. Cool, amazing. The rest kind of like in line. Adding charges where it was necessary to make sense with a new 24 charge setting. We got increased great skill check zones. Sure. Like these are all fine and dandy. And then another big thing is how anti-hemis are going to work. These are the iridescent medkit add-ons. So the syringes being used on yourself will impose the 33% healing debuff. So using a hemi on yourself is going to take 24 seconds. Now they don't say it here, but I am assuming that they're talking about how please note its healing speed will be reduced by the medkit self healing penalty. They don't really talk about how popping out another survivor. I'm assuming because they're specifically calling out the self healing penalty here, resulting in a 24-second heal, that if you pop it on somebody else, it's still probably going to take 16 seconds, which is fine. This is another nerf to a add-on that was really insane, and for all my killer players out there, one of the most demoralizing thing to happen in a chase is for them to just randomly heal in the middle of the chase. Not randomly, but it feels like all the work you put into it is gone. It was incredibly frustrating. It's still going to be there. However, you got a little bit more time to actually catch up to him before it happens. What was probably the next biggest complaint to the PTB was the developers kind of nerfed Billy, but hit it with like, hey, we actually buffed him. We changed the overheat mechanic, so we're in compensation. We're gonna nerf something, and it's like, why does Billy need a compensation nerf when he's already not incredible? And so they kind of really addressed that. They keeping the overheat mechanic toned down. They're gonna keep that buff. So basically now you gain less heat when revving, less heat when starting, but more heat when you're charging. which is fine. You know, Drift King Billy takes a little bit of a hit there, but like Curve Billy really appreciates that change. And they're saying, you know what, we're scrapping the nerf onto the Doom and Death engravings. Amazing, great. Billy needed no nerfs to that. That is amazing, honestly. Well done. Honestly, at this point, they really should just remove the overheat mechanic. Like, Billy is way past the time of Insta-Saw Billy that, like, plagued DBD, you know, 5 years ago or whatever it is. But you know what? This is a step in the right direction. We'll take it. Perks. There was a lot of perks that were getting changed up here. A lot of the biggest, like a lot of the big meta perks took some sort of buff, nerf, whatever it was. Let's go over them. So, Dead Hard, the meta survivor perk since its inception in the game. How many nerfs can it get before it's unusable? If I knew, but maybe this is it. Maybe this is where it finally puts in the ground or puts into a spot that's reasonable. This was the change I was hoping for originally. So the change proposed on the original PTB was that when you unhook someone, your Dead Hard activates. A lot of people pointed out that really encourages tunneling because why would you chase the person who now has Dead Hard active when you could chase the person who doesn't have Dead Hard active? Fair point. And I was like, well, okay, so what if the unhooked person got it? And that's what we have here. Now, so if you unhook yourself or you unhook yourself, so just a random Kobe or even Deliverance, which I'm excited to pair this with, your Dead Hard activates. Now, a lot of people did still point out that this doesn't really stop tunneling as much because you could just get slapped off a hook and then your deep wound's there. But honestly, I think this is still a really solid change. Like, that was going to happen with Off the Record anyways. That was going to happen with, like, Dead Hard anyways. Like, if you got slapped off the hook, you weren't going to use your Dead Hard anyways. So, I feel like this is a really reasonable way. It's not necessarily like a hard, like a true and tried anti-tunnel perk. It's more like a second chance perk if you've been left alone. This is definitely a pretty aggressive nerf at the end of it. You know, Dead Hard went from functionally unlimited uses to approximately 6 uses if you got literally every single unhook to a maximum of 2 uses. We'll see how this shakes out. You know, I think you won't be seeing 4 Dead Hards anymore. You might be seeing 1 Dead Hard, but I think this is the era of Live and Sprint Burst for sure. Next change is Pain Res, and I have really mulled this one over. I think overall this is a side grade at this point. Like, original PTB for Pain Res was, you know, Pain Res now no longer like activated every single hook. It was only in the server's first hook. So we're talking about a little math here. So now so they kept the only on original hooks. However, they buffed the number to 25% from 15%. That's a lot. That's a pretty meaty buff to the numbers. So original pain res, you could get essentially 12 hooks worth of pain res. However, only 10 of them were really useful. Because, you know, you hook the 11th hook would kill the 3rd survivor, the 4th survivor isn't going to finish the gen, the 12th hook would kill the 4th survivor, there's no one to finish a gen, but the 10th hook, 2 people could still finish a gen, so I like to assume that Pain Res had 10 effective hooks. With 10 effective hooks, if you got every single Pain Res, that was 150% gen regression, spread across all the gens and whatnot. Now we're getting 100% gen regression. But overly 4 hooks. However, those chunks are coming in much bigger chunks. So, I think where Pain Res is really going to shine is on that first chase. That first chase you down someone, you know there's at least one gen out there that's at like 75%. At least one of them is at 75% when you get that first down. So hooking them, that is massive hit to that gen. That gen is going to have so much time for you to go to defend it if you know where it's at. Honestly, that second hook, if you're able to get a quick second hook, like, there's so much compiling power between just the first 4 hooks here. I almost want to call this a buff. I want to really work with it and see how it pans out in the end. But my gut's leaning this is a side grade up. We'll see. Next one, Boon Circle Healing. They took the exact thing that I wanted. So you still can't self-care in it. You still now see the auras injure people in it. However, they're like, hey, we're bumping the number to 100% healing. Amazing. Fantastic. Cool. I never had an issue with altruistic healing. Altruistic healing should be encouraged more than just self-caring. This is an amazing buff. This now makes healing inside of a boon only take 8 seconds. That means if 2 people want to reset, that's you just healed 1 person functionally. This is a great buff. This perk is no longer going to be like the bane of every killer's existence. Wraiths, Onryos, all the hit and run killers aren't going to cry whenever they see a boon pop up. But this still makes it, I think, usable and useful. Finally, they did change auto wreckers a little bit. I haven't seen what the new tiles look like. One of these new tiles which featured a window and pallet and would end up being fairly unsafe. So they rebalanced tile. Oh, this is a little junk tile. Okay, so they did rebalance this to the tile that has like 1 pallet, and then like there's this little pillar, and like the loop around that pallet is literally 1 lunge worth of reach. Like that pallet was only good if you managed to get the stun off. So as you can see here on this loop, it'd be like, ooh, this is a different loop. Oh, I think this is the reworked loop. Okay. So, cool. That loop was really stupid anyways. I'm really glad that they kind of made a stronger loop there, because honestly, I can't tell you the number of times I've gone there as killer, and the pallet meant nothing. Times I've gone there as survivor, trying to bait the hit, trying to get them to hit with a stun, because you don't leave that area unless they get stunned. So, honestly, overall, these are amazing, great changes. There were a couple things that I think that were amiss. Like, I'm still sad to see Call of Brine hit as hard as it was. I'm still really sad to see Overcharge hit as hard as it was. I really liked if those 2 perks, instead of being nerfed as hard as they were, made so they couldn't stack. Because I know that was a big issue. A killer goes up to a gen, kicks it once, 30 seconds later the gen's 0. It was from 99 to 0 almost. It was dead. Like, just make them not stack. Neither perk was oppressive alone. It was the combination of those 2, plus Eruption, plus, everything else. Like, Call of Brine was never an issue when it was released with Onryo. So, like, I feel like that nerf was still super unwarranted. There was no buff to Ruin, there was no buff to Hexes in general, which really made me upset. But overall, like, we kept the Overzealous buff. The Overzealous buff looks pretty fun. Potentially 20% speed bonus on gens if you cleanse a Hex. That's pretty crazy. But, overall, like, I still think this whole update is a big W for everybody involved. I know a lot of survivors will be sad about their, like, self-carrying speeds going away. Everybody who was a big green kit jockey, myself, who can't really just, heal mid-chase anymore, that's gonna go away. But honestly, that's for the best. Like, we should be thankful for that. Like, let's get some balance back into this. There are still a lot of concerns from which I heard, like, the healing nerfs still, like, self-killing nerfs still, like, benefit really strong killers, but realistically, I want to direct those conversations away from healing and to the killer themselves. Nurse and Blight aren't benefiting from healing changes. Nurse and Blight are still busted and still should be changed. We'll see. That's another debate for another day. Overall, I'm super excited. Let me know in the comments how you are feeling. If you think I missed anything, if you disagree with me, if you agree with me, I'd really appreciate it. The comments help the algorithm. Leave me a like. Until next time, guys, I stream every single weekday morning, playing Resident Evil, playing Dead by Daylight. Come join me. It'd be great to see you. Peace out, guys.